I brought 2 jade tablets and a jade seal that belonged to my great-great-grandmother in California. She died in 1929. At that point, my mother inherited them. I have been told they are 18th century from China. According to my mother, she may have purchased them in San Francisco, where she lived.
At first, nothing about these objects prepares you for just how important they might be. What you have here is a remarkable Group 2 jade tablets and a jade seal, each rooted in the traditions of Imperial China. The tablets are carved from mottled green jade and were most likely once part of a jade book, a format used to record significant events or honor ancestors. The inscriptions are executed in formal script, and rather than being 18th century, as once believed, they are clearly dated to the first year of the Guangxu reign, 1875. Surviving examples like this are often fragments of a larger set, typically 12 pages in total. The seal, however, draws immediate attention. Carved from matching jade and topped with a double dragon finial, it reflects a design strongly associated with imperial authority. This motif was widely used for court seals, symbolizing power and legitimacy. But look closer, and the story becomes more complex. The carving lacks the deep, confident precision expected from 18th century imperial workshops. Subtle irregularities in the script and detailing suggest a later date, likely late 19th century, possibly within the same Guangxu period as the tablets. Together, these pieces form a fascinating glimpse into Qing dynasty culture, where jade was not only a material of beauty, but a symbol of status, memory, and power.
So it may carry an auction estimate of 300 to 500,000.
Oh, is that all? Okay. Well, that's a little bit different than what I was expecting today, but oh my. Oh my, thank you. That's amazing. Wow.
My great-grandfather was the ambassador to China during the Box Rebellion, and my great-grandmother befriended the Empress. She didn't like most foreigners, but she did like her. And when my mother was born, the Empress Dowager sent one of her ladies-in-waiting to buy a present, and this was the present.
It's rare that a piece stops you in your tracks, but this one does not just for its beauty, but for the story behind it. What you have here is a Jadeite pendant of remarkable quality, elevated even further by an extraordinary history. The jade itself is stunning. It shows that vivid, highly prized green tone with a level of translucency that immediately signals quality. The carving is refined, and at the center is the double happiness motif, a traditional symbol representing joy, unity, and celebration. It's accented with a coral bead and tiny seed pearls, likely remnants of an earlier, more delicate mounting. On its own, this would already be considered a fine 19th century jade carving, but what truly transforms it is its provenance. The connection to the Empress Dowager Cixi places this object in a moment of real historical tension and change. During the late Qing period, especially after the Boxer Rebellion, she carefully navigated relationships with the West. While cautious, she also used diplomacy in subtle ways, hosting gatherings and presenting gifts to select individuals. Pieces like this were part of that effort, elegant, symbolic, and deeply intentional. So yes, it's a beautiful pendant, but more than that, it's a rare intersection of craftsmanship history and personal connection, something that simply cannot be replicated.
I'd estimate the value on this is just a nice piece of jade at $30,000 to $50,000.
Oh my gosh, I'm very surprised.
In addition, because of the provenance on the piece,
Yeah.
right, this could easily go twice that high end. and that would be at auction.
I bought it at auction in 1993 in Lexington. My husband and I both are interested in Asian things. I had the opportunity to buy it, and I thought it was a good price, and I didn't really know for sure what it was, other than I thought it was probably some kind of jade, but it was listed as Spanish nephrite.
What did this cost, do you remember?
Well, I can't really remember, and I couldn't find a receipt for it, but I want to say maybe about $800.
At first glance, it feels like a beautiful decorative object, but the deeper you look, the more it reveals. This is a Chinese-carved nephrite jade basin, and it carries both artistic and cultural significance. The form tells an important story. This is not just a bowl, but a shallow wash basin originally designed to sit on a stand and hold water. Inside the carving is dense and dynamic, filled with lotus flowers, leaves, and flowing vines, symbols of purity and renewal in Chinese culture. Around the rim, the decoration continues with chrysanthemums and bats, both auspicious motifs. Bats represent good fortune, while chrysanthemums are linked to longevity, creating a layered message of prosperity and happiness. The material is nephrite jade with a deep green tone, often called spinach jade. Natural fissures and variations in the stone confirm its authenticity, though they also mark areas of structural sensitivity. Based on style and craftsmanship, this piece likely dates to the Qing dynasty, late 18th to early 19th century. It is not only visually striking, but a refined example of traditional Chinese jade carving meant to be admired from every angle.
I would recommend an insurance figure for this of about $25,000.
Oh my God. Okay.
Okay?
Wow.
25,000, maybe even 30,000.
Whoa.
Okay?
Oh my God.
That's what you would be expected to pay if you went to an antique shop that dealt in Chinese art
Really?
and bought this today.
Wow, that's
Okay.
amazing. Oh, I'm excited.
It's a snuff bottle, a gift from a friend. She bought it in the 1960s as a possible Faberge piece.
Sometimes a single detail is enough to transform an object's entire identity, and in this case, it's the name Faberge. What may have started as a simple jade snuff bottle is in fact something far more extraordinary. The base is an 18th century Jadeite snuff bottle, already prized for its age and material. But in the late 19th century, it was elevated by Faberge, who added this remarkable jeweled mount. That transformation turned it from a traditional object into a piece of imperial luxury. The mount is crafted in 14-karat gold, the Russian standard, and set with a ring of Burmese rubies known for their exceptional quality and color. At the very top sits a striking cabochon garnet, completing the design with richness and balance. Faberge, closely associated with the Russian imperial court, was known for creating objects of unmatched refinement. Their work was commissioned by the czars, and every detail reflects that elite level of craftsmanship. So what you're looking at is more than a beautiful piece. It's a rare fusion of Chinese jade carving and Russian imperial artistry, something that collectors actively seek and rarely encounter.
I'm very happy to tell you, retail, this is easily would sell between $50,000 and $75,000.
Oh my gosh, that's fabulous.
And it is a unique piece. It's not replaceable.
No, absolutely
It should be
not.
insured for $100,000. It's absolutely a fabulous piece.
That's wonderful.
It's museum quality.
My mother gave them to me about 30 years ago, and she acquired them, so she told me, in the New York Chinatown in the 40s probably.
For years, they sat quietly tucked away in their boxes, admired more for their mystery than fully understood. In reality, These are Chinese Jadeite figures of maidens, and they carry both artistic beauty and cultural meaning. Carved around 1890 to 1920, they are notably larger than most examples of this type. The material Jadeite has long symbolized purity and clarity, while the peonies they hold represent wealth, honor, and nobility. Together, these elements create a layered message of virtue and prosperity. Interestingly, pieces like these were often made not just for China, but for the Western market, where they became fashionable decorative objects. Many were even used as lamp bases during the Victorian and Edwardian periods, blending Eastern symbolism with Western design. The color is especially appealing. A soft lavender tone combined with touches of apple green is highly sought after by collectors. These subtle variations, along with natural inclusions, confirm the jade's authenticity and origin likely mined in Burma and worked in China. What was once simply kept safe has now become something far more significant, a pair of elegant carvings with both history and growing desirability.
These pieces, if they were up at auction, would have a pre-sale estimate of $25,000 to $40,000.
That's amazing.
I was in college in New York City in 1965, 66, and I went home for Thanksgiving vacation. My birthday usually falls on Thanksgiving vacation, and a very good friend of mine who was an antiques dealer in Baltimore called me up and said that he had a piece that he'd just gotten from an estate that he thought that I should have. So I went and looked at it and fell in love with it instantly.
Some gifts never lose their magic, but every so often, one becomes far more extraordinary than anyone ever imagined. What began as a birthday and Christmas present has turned into a truly remarkable object. This is a Chinese jade censer carved from a single piece of stone. Its soft, even white color is immediately appealing, a quality highly prized by collectors. The form is elegant, yet complex, with looped handles featuring loose rings, a detail that is technically very difficult to achieve, and a clear sign of skilled craftsmanship. The surface is richly decorated with lotus vines in relief, symbolizing purity and renewal, while a delicately carved butterfly forms part of the handle, adding a sense of lightness and grace. When you turn the piece, the flowing design continues seamlessly, showing careful planning and execution. Looking closely, subtle tool marks on the leaves suggest that while the piece reflects the style of the 18th century Qianlong period, it was likely carved later in the early 20th century, when artisans revived classical forms. What truly transforms its significance today is the market. With increasing demand from collectors who value white jade and traditional designs, pieces like this have seen dramatic appreciation.
If you wanted to sell this at auction today, my sense is that it would be in the $50,000 to $80,000 range at auction, which is a pretty good price.
Well, it's still a very nice birthday present.
Oh, Lord, yes.
Don't you think?
And I have to say, I don't know many people that have put $300 down and ended up with something like this.
These were my grandfather's. In the early part of last century, he did a lot of traveling in Eastern Europe and in Asia. And I think he had a whole collection of snuff bottles. And what I understood from my grandmother is he kind of bartered for them. So he had about 30 of them in a little case that was over the fireplace in their house.
At first, they may seem like just part of a charming old collection, but hidden among them is something truly extraordinary. What you have here are Chinese snuff bottles, and while one is quite nice, the other is on an entirely different level. The first bottle, carved from lapis lazuli, dates to the mid-19th century, around 1850 to 1860. It features delicate carvings of birds and flowers, and the hollowing is well executed. It's a refined and attractive piece, showing solid craftsmanship and good use of material. In today's market, a bottle like this would carry a value of around $400, reflecting its quality and appeal. But then we turn to the second bottle, and everything changes. This example was made in the Imperial workshops, likely for use at the highest levels of the Qing court. One of the key indicators is the extraordinary hollowing. The walls are incredibly thin, requiring the removal of a large amount of precious material, something only imperial craftsmen could afford to do. The carving is equally impressive, featuring a foo dog mask and foliate decoration, both characteristic of imperial style. The stopper combines tourmaline glass and jadeite, with the jadeite showing a rich, vivid green color of exceptional quality. Dating to around 1780 to 1820, this is a rare and highly desirable piece, far beyond the ordinary.
This bottle's worth between $50,000 to $60,000.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
And $50,000 to $60,000, that would be an auction estimate, and it could even go higher than that, because
Wow.
these things are very desirable.
Wow.
Everybody wants a bottle like that in their collection.
These were part of my uncle's collection. He was in China, Burma in World War II. I assume that some of these he actually brought back from China. I know later he and his wife traveled, and so he may have gotten these later in life. He passed away in February of 2015, so I inherited.
This group of jade carvings immediately signals that they were never ordinary objects. What you have here is a collection of Chinese white nephrite jade pieces, including belt fittings and a carved figure, all tied to status and symbolism. The upper pieces form a belt buckle, while the lower is a belt hook, both decorated with dragons. One of the most powerful symbols in Chinese culture, representing authority and strength. These were worn by men of high rank and wealth, making them both functional and highly symbolic accessories. The material itself is white nephrite jade, a rarer and more desirable form of jade. Its pale, even tone reflects quality and elevates the importance of the pieces. The standout object is the carved recumbent ram, one of the zodiac animals symbolizing prosperity and strength. The carving is detailed and extends even to the underside, a sign of refined craftsmanship. Natural brown patches and inclusions remain visible, adding character and confirming the stone's authenticity. The wooden stand, carved to resemble a natural root, was likely added later for display purposes. Dating to the 18th and 19th centuries, these objects were once markers of identity and status, and today they remain highly collectible examples of Chinese jade artistry.
An auction estimate for this group would be $40,000 to $60,000.
Wow. Wow.
This one by itself is probably in the $25,000 to $35,000 range.
Wow. Had no idea. Thank you.
This is a piece that's been in my family as long as I can remember, and I believe it was originally purchased by my grandfather.
Do you know about what date your grandfather acquired it?
If I had to guess, it would probably be sometime in the early 1900s.
This is the kind of object that immediately tells you it was made to impress. What you have here is a Chinese Jadeite carving in the form of a peach, and that form is incredibly significant. In Chinese symbolism, the peach represents longevity, immortality, and prosperity, often associated with gifts for important occasions, especially birthdays of high-status individuals. So right away, this suggests it was not a casual purchase, but something created with purpose. The material is multicolored jadeite, a stone that became highly prized in China from the 18th century onward. What's fascinating is how the carver has used the natural variations in the stone to enhance the form, giving the peach a sense of depth and realism. But the real story is in the carving. The level of detail, the fluidity of the lines, and the way the surface has been worked all point to a highly skilled artisan. This is what experts often call a tour de force, a standout example within its category. It sits on a beautifully carved rosewood stand which complements the piece and confirms that it was intended as a presentation or cabinet object, something meant to be displayed and admired. Dating to the late Qing dynasty, around 1890 to 1920. This is an exceptional example of jade carving, one that stands apart from later mass-produced pieces.
Now, at auction, currently, this piece would carry a pre-sale estimate of $40,000 to $60,000.
You're kidding. Really?
It's a marvelous example of its type. It's really an exceptional piece, beautiful color,
beautiful.
tour de force carving. Thank you very much for bringing it in.
Thank you.
It belonged to my grandfather. He and my grandmother had it on their mantle, and when he died in 1971, we inherited it. I don't know where he bought it or got it from.
There are objects that immediately tell a story, and then there are those that reveal it layer by layer. This is a Chinese jade carving of a qilin, a mythical creature rich in symbolism and meaning. The qilin is a powerful figure in Chinese culture, combining elements of different animals with scales a lion-like or dragon-like head and a dynamic posture. It is closely associated with good fortune protection and prosperity. Surrounding it are flowing forms resembling clouds or lingji, both symbols of longevity and luck. Beneath the figure is a form that resembles a stack of books or a treasure chest, suggesting knowledge, wisdom, and hidden value. This is not accidental, but a deliberate symbolic choice. The material is yellow jade, a rare and desirable color. The carving is expressive and bold, though not as finely finished as earlier imperial works. This places it in the Republic period, early 20th century, when artisans revived classical styles from earlier dynasties.
So I'd say for insurance purposes, somewhere around $40,000.
All right, that's amazing.
These were pieces that my great aunt, who lived in Peking, gave to my mother and father.
At first glance, they seem like a charming group of decorative objects, but each piece tells a very different story about history, craftsmanship, and value. The camel immediately recalls the Silk Road of the Tang dynasty, 600 to 900 AD, when such figures were placed in tombs of wealthy merchants. However, details in the glaze, clay, and modeling reveal this is actually a 20th century reproduction, likely from the 1920s or 1930s. While attractive, it is a later homage, and at auction would typically bring around $100 to $200. In contrast, the two carved figures are far more significant. They are made of jadeite, prized for its translucency and rich color sourced from what is now Myanmar. Their design combines dragon imagery with elements reminiscent of guardian lions, all set on beautifully carved lotus-form bases. Dating to the early 20th century, these were likely created for a refined domestic setting rather than export. Not functional objects like bookends, they were meant to be displayed prominently as symbols of taste and status.
All of us agreed that I think that a value in the neighborhood of around $20,000 to $30,000 would not be unexpected, and that would be at auction.
Right. Right.
I grew up in Switzerland, and my parents started collecting Chinese art in the 1950s. My father went to China in 1964, and I don't know if he purchased this in China or if he purchased it through a dealer in London that my parents bought a lot of items from.
Few objects carry a sense of age quite like this one. Its surface alone tells a story that stretches back millennia. This is a jade spear point mounted into a bronze shaft created not for combat, but for ritual use in ancient China. Originally, it would have been far more elaborate than what is seen today. Beneath the aged surface, there were likely inlays of gold, silver, and turquoise arranged in intricate patterns of dragons and mythical creatures. Over time, much of that decoration has been lost, leaving behind a powerful but weathered form. Pieces like this are associated with the great bronze traditions of early China, most likely from the Zhou dynasty around 1046 to 771 BC. These were ceremonial objects placed in tombs as part of burial practices, symbolizing status protection and spiritual authority. What makes this example especially significant is its survival. In many cases, only the jade element remains, while the bronze deteriorates. Here, both components are still intact, preserving the original structure.
It's pretty unusual.
That's great.
What do you think this is worth?
$20,000.
You are great. It's worth about $20,000 to $30,000 at auction.
That's wonderful.
I was told when I purchased it that it was jade, but I never had that confirmed, and I've always wondered. I purchased it at an auction about 10 or maybe a little more than 10 years ago, and at the time it was sold for jade. I paid about $50 for it.
It's the kind of object that quietly sits on a shelf until one day it completely rewrites its own story. What was once thought to be a simple decorative piece turns out to be something far more significant. This is indeed Chinese jade, more precisely nephrite, and the moment you study it closely, the quality becomes apparent. The form itself is striking a circular vessel with sloping sides supported by 3 feet each, carved with stylized mask faces. These bold, expressive features with bulging eyes and powerful expressions give the piece a strong visual presence. The craftsmanship is equally telling. The body is beautifully hollowed with a thin, refined rim, a technical achievement that requires both skill and confidence in the material. Subtle veining within the stone and its soft, pale green tone are consistent with jade used in earlier periods, but also seen in later works. This is where the mystery deepens. The form relates to incense burners traditionally used with sand and incense sticks, yet the exact dating remains open. It could reasonably fall into the early 20th century, but there are compelling arguments for an earlier origin, possibly the late 18th or early 19th century. And that distinction changes everything.
And I think a conservative number is going to be in the range of $15,000 to $20,000, and that would be at auction.
I'm astonished. Totally unexpected, totally astonished.
It belonged to my mother-in-law and father-in-law. My father-in-law was the first consul general for the new country of the Republic of Korea in New York City. I don't know how it came into their possession, but they gave it to my husband, and when he died, it came to me.
It's a classic case of assumption versus reality. What looks like a perfect pair turns out to be something entirely different. At first glance, these appear to be a matched jade set, but in truth they are two unrelated white jade pieces brought together over time. Once you begin to examine them closely, the differences become undeniable. The color tones vary, and more importantly, the dish lacks any central fitting to properly support the bowl and cover. That alone tells us they were never intended to function as a single unit. The dish itself is quite elegant. Its broad, flat center and gently rising rim reflect a traditional Chinese form popular in the 18th century. However, the thinness of the carving and the understated foot suggest it was likely made later, possibly in the 19th or early 20th century. The absence of a mark also supports this later dating. The lidded bowl follows a similar pattern. While its shape echoes earlier styles, the craftsmanship points to a more modern production period. Both pieces are carved from fine white jade, a material historically associated with wealth and refinement. So, while they are not a true set, they remain two refined and collectible objects, each with its own place within the long tradition of Chinese jade carving.
I believe that the two objects together are worth $15,000 to $25,000 at auction.
Oh my heavens. Oh my heavens. That is stunning.
My dad got them from a family when he was in Formosa. It was in the middle of the 50s. All he told us was that a family that he had stayed with and was friends with gave him that as a parting gift when he came home.
Do you have any idea how old they are? Did you have any assumptions?
Yes, my father had taken them to the museum in San Francisco at one time in a brown bag on the bus. And he said that they said it was the Qilin dynasty.
At first glance, they seem like elegant decorative carvings, but the deeper you look, the more meaning they reveal. This is a pair of Chinese white jade rams, and they carry a rich symbolic message. In Chinese culture, the ram is one of the 12 zodiac animals representing strength and vitality. What makes these pieces especially meaningful is the detail that each ram is biting a piece of lingzhi fungus, a powerful symbol of immortality. Together, they express a wish for enduring strength, longevity, and prosperity. The material is white jade with russet skin, and that warm brown coloration is not damage, but the natural outer layer of the stone. Collectors value this highly as it confirms authenticity and adds visual depth. Stylistically, the carvings reflect the elegance of the Qianlong period, one of the high points of Chinese jade craftsmanship. However, subtle softness in the details suggests they were likely made later during the Republic period, 1911 to 1949, when artisans intentionally revived earlier imperial styles. What truly enhances their importance is their history. Having left Asia before the 1950s, they are firmly identified as pre-communist works, a detail that significantly increases their desirability in today's market.
At auction, they would be worth or carry a pre-sale estimate of at least $15,000 to $25,000.
Wow.
Now, if in fact they were Qianlong, they would be worth considerably more, maybe $80,000 to $120,000.
This was a gift from my Aunt Juanita. She went to Shanghai in 1929 to teach English at Shanghai University, and they lived in Shanghai until 1957, and they moved to New York City.
Few objects manage to feel both ancient and mysterious at the same time, and this is one of them. At its core, this is a Chinese jade bai disc, a form deeply rooted in early ritual traditions. The circular shape is essential. In Chinese belief, the bi represented the heavens, often paired with another form, symbolizing the earth creating a connection between the human world and the spiritual realm. These discs were placed in tombs as part of that symbolic journey. This example is carved from Celadon jade, with a soft, pale green tone. Across the surface, there is a flowing pattern of clouds or waves within which dragons subtly emerge and disappear. The design feels almost hidden, revealing itself only after careful observation, which adds to its intrigue. On the reverse, a fine cross-hatched pattern covers the entire surface, directly referencing ancient ritual jades dating back thousands of years. However, the presence of dragons indicates a later reinterpretation, rather than an original ancient piece. Pieces like this first appeared in the 18th century. But there was also a revival of such forms in the early 20th century, making exact dating uncertain.
I think a more reasonable amount would be $15,000 to $20,000
Easy peasy.
at auction.
Oh, goodness. Wow. My friend told me not to get emotional. Another treasure from Aunt Juanita.
Tell me what you know about this pendant.
Well, I know it's a white jade carving. I know not much other than that. We inherited it from my husband's mother.
Oh, yeah? Do you know where she got it?
I have no idea. She traveled the world, so I don't know.
And you tried to sell it at one time, and what
Yes.
happened there?
Well, we put it in an estate sale, and the girl that did the estate said that she did some research on it and thought it might be worth $1,200, but it didn't sell, so it's been incognito for.
What appears at first to be a simple ornament is in fact a remarkable example of 18th century Chinese jade carving. The material is white Nephrite jade, and not just any quality, but highly refined with excellent translucency, something collectors actively seek. This level of purity places it among the finer jade works of its time. Stylistically, the carving points strongly to the Qianlong period, 1735 to 1796, one of the most celebrated eras for jade craftsmanship. The surface is alive with flowing, undulating forms, where scrolling patterns subtly transform into animal elements, hints of bird heads, small hooves, and abstract organic shapes. This kind of imaginative layered carving is very characteristic of that period. What also stands out is its size. Pieces like this are typically much smaller, often about half the scale, making this example particularly impressive. Originally, it would have been worn suspended from a belt, serving both as decoration and a symbol of status. In today's market, high-quality white jade from this period is increasingly scarce, which only adds to its appeal and importance.
We think that at auction, this would probably sell for between $15,000 to $20,000.
That's better than $1,200.
Exactly.
$15,000 to $20,000. That's amazing.
It's a good jade, and there's very little of it on the market right now.
Mom and Dad traveled extensively out of the country, in the country, and they would come back with things that they picked up in the antique stores. I think they brought this back from somewhere in their travels in the U.S.
Approximately what period of time?
Probably in the 70s or the 80s. They never really told me what it was.
They may have sat quietly on a shelf for decades, but these two jade pieces carry far more significance than their modest display suggests. These are two distinct Chinese jade carvings, each with its own story and cultural influence. The first piece, mounted by the New York jeweler Edward Farmer, dates to the 18th to 19th century. While the mounting itself doesn't necessarily increase the value, it does enhance its desirability and market appeal. This object is known as a pomander, traditionally used to hold spices or fragrant materials. Its surface is decorated with elegant scrolling patterns reflecting refined craftsmanship. The second piece is even more compelling. It is firmly 18th century and carved in what is known as Mughal style. Although Chinese, it reflects Indian artistic influence inspired by jade works exchanged between China and India. One key indicator of its age is its thicker carving, as later pieces tend to be much thinner. The small yellow-brown patches are natural features of the jade known as russet markings. Both pieces were entirely hand-carved, a testament to the skill and patience of the artisans. While dating jade can be challenging due to repeated styles over centuries, these examples stand out for their quality and character.
This one here, with the farmer name on it, would be probably $6,000 to $8,000. The other one that's here, the Mughal one, would be more like $8,000 to $12,000.
You're kidding. Unbelievable.
And that is at auction. That's an auction estimate.
Right.
Well, I know it's a carved jade vessel, and we got it in an estate sale about 18 years ago in Nashville, and I really don't know a whole lot about it.
Some objects reveal their true significance only after a closer look, and this is one of them. This is a carved Jadeite vessel, and the material itself immediately sets it apart. That icy white tone with subtle green hues and a slightly granular texture tells us we are looking at Jadeite, a rarer and more prized material than Nephrite. While it lacks the intense emerald green patches collectors often seek, the sheer size of the stone is impressive and speaks to both value and craftsmanship. The form is distinctly Chinese, a shape that has existed from the Ming dynasty through later periods. The looped handles with free-moving rings are not just decorative, they are a deliberate display of the carver's technical skill and control over the material. As you move into the decoration, the piece becomes even more compelling. The central figure is Guan Yin, the goddess of mercy, shown in multiple scenes. On one side, she appears with a carp, a symbol of good fortune and success. On the other, she is depicted again, with flowing robes carved with remarkable detail. The style reflects influence from Mughal jade carving, which inspired Chinese artisans in later periods. Despite its delicate appearance, the vessel is thick and substantial. Earlier examples tend to be thinner and more refined, suggesting this piece likely dates to the early to mid-20th century. It is not just decorative, it is a striking example of tradition reinterpreted.
I would say in an auction market, this is likely to realize somewhere between $12,000 and $18,000 in today's market.
All right, great.
So that's a pretty good bit of compounded interest, isn't it?
Tenfold or so. Yes, I couldn't put money in the bank for that.
I think so. Were this from the late Qing dynasty, it would be valued in the $150,000 to $250,000 range.
I know this is jade. Maybe it's from China, it's Asian. I bought it in a estate sale.
Great. And was the estate sale local or?
No, local.
Okay. How many years ago did you buy it?
Many years. I think it's maybe 10 years.
10 years. Okay. Do you recall what you paid for it?
Yeah, I paid $30.
It's the kind of small object that could easily be overlooked until its true age and craftsmanship come into focus. This is a Chinese jade carving in the form of a duck, rich in both symbolism and history. In Chinese culture, a single duck represents balance, harmony, and self-sufficiency, while pairs symbolize marital fidelity. This suggests the piece may have been displayed as a quiet reflection of personal values. Stylistically, it points to the late Ming to early Qing period around the 17th century. The use of pale Celadon jade with natural russet inclusions is a key indicator. as earlier collectors appreciated these natural variations rather than perfect uniformity. The carving itself reinforces this, dating with subtle archaic scroll motifs along the body and tail, echoing even older artistic traditions. The craftsmanship is refined yet restrained. The feathers are delicately incised, and the surface has a soft, matte polish, unlike the bright, glossy finish seen in later reproductions. All of these details align with early jade carving techniques. What once seemed like a modest purchase reveals itself as a piece of real significance, both artistically and historically.
In an auction today, 10 to 15,000.
Oh my God! So I have to buy the lunch for my boyfriend. Oh, I never think about it. It's so much.
About 20 years ago, I was at an auction. It was a storage and moving type of auction, and they had a few pieces on the table, and I happened to see this, and it went up for auction, and I purchased it for between $20 and $40. And for 20 years, it's been sitting in my display cabinet, and I never knew anything about it. I believe that's jade. It has that cold touch to me. I'm not an expert. I don't know anything about jade, but I knew that it was jade.
Sometimes the most extraordinary finds begin with the smallest gamble, and this is one of those stories. What appears at first to be a simple object is actually a Chinese carved nephrite jade vessel, and it carries far more history than one might expect. The material is the first clue. That cool, smooth surface and subtle translucency confirm it as nephrite jade, a stone prized in China for centuries. The soft green tone, along with natural variations such as cloudy areas, brown streaks, and internal fissures are not flaws, but signs of authenticity and age. The form is especially telling. The deep rounded body combined with the elegant S-shaped handles reflects a powerful and classical Chinese design language. The decorative elements around the rim and base, resembling stylized leaves, reinforce this traditional aesthetic. Inside, a carved inner lip suggests that the vessel originally had a cover, now lost, which would have completed the piece. Based on the shape carving style and surface wear, this vessel likely dates to the transitional period between the Ming and Qing dynasties, around the 17th to early 18th century. That makes it both rare and highly collectible. What makes it particularly compelling is its survival. Despite the missing lid, it retains a beautiful natural patina developed through years of handling, adding depth and character.
I think it's not unreasonable to estimate this to sell in the range of $10,000 to $15,000.
Really? Really? That was a good $20 investment I made.
My husband's great-uncle Jake was a correspondent for the Philadelphia Ledger in the 30s. He enjoyed traveling and collecting, and he particularly enjoyed collecting Asian pieces.
What you're looking at here is more than just a decorative object. It's a deliberate nod to China's ancient past. This is a jade vessel in the form of a hu vase, a shape inspired by ritual bronzes that date back thousands of years. The decoration immediately reinforces that connection. At the top sits a stylized teoti mask, a mythical motif commonly seen on archaic bronzes, its eyes forming a central ridge down the body. Across the surface, you'll notice scrolling elements layered over a repeating Leiwen pattern, a geometric design rooted in early Chinese art. On the sides, the vessel features animal head handles with loose ring sangs suspended from their mouths. These rings are not just ornamental, they are a clear demonstration of the carver's technical skill, showcasing the ability to work intricate forms from a single piece of stone. The jade itself has natural variations in color, including subtle discolorations and inclusions. Rather than being removed, these were intentionally preserved to give the piece an appearance of age and antiquity, something highly valued by collectors. Based on the style and craftsmanship, this piece likely dates to the late Qing dynasty around 1880 to 1900 a time, when artisans were consciously reviving ancient forms and aesthetics. It is a strong example of how later works can still carry the spirit of much earlier traditions.
Today, if this came up for auction, we would expect it to sell between $8,000 and $12,000.
Okay. I am very surprised. That's marvelous.
If you'd come a few years ago, it wouldn't have been anywhere near that.
Along with my sister. I inherited this in 2021 from our mother. She inherited it from a Foreign Service officer that she worked with. And this Foreign Service officer was stationed in a lot of countries in Asia. This is one in a collection of jade and I believe marble pieces. She was very fond of jade, this Foreign Service officer lady. She liked to collect jade, marble, and all these Asian trinkets.
At first glance, it feels like a delicate vanity object, but in reality, it's a fascinating blend of history and craftsmanship. This is a hand mirror, assembled from antique Chinese jade elements brought together in the early 20th century. The central plaque is carved from whitish Celadon jade, likely dating to the 18th century. It features peaches, a powerful symbol in Chinese culture, representing longevity, prosperity, and a long life. The carving is confident and detailed, showing the hand of a skilled artisan. The handle is formed from a second jade piece, originally a belt hook carved as a stylized dragon, symbolizing strength and authority. These two jade elements were never originally connected, but were later combined into a single object. The silver mount, decorated with bats, adds another layer of meaning, as bats symbolize good fortune. This kind of combination was popular in the early 1900s, when collectors repurposed antique jade into luxury personal items. Even the fitted box likely dates to that same period, completing the presentation.
The value in a retail setting, the box and the hand mirror together, would be $10,000.
Oh, wow. Okay. Good to know. It's exciting.
My uncle left this to my sister and me. It was given to him by an American author named Marie Killelea, who he was very good friends with.
At first, it may look like a simple carving, but every detail in this piece tells a story of tradition, symbolism, and intention. This is a Chinese Celadon jade carving of a seated boy, and it carries a deeply meaningful message. In Chinese culture, such imagery was often given as a wedding gift. The seated child represents the hope that a marriage would produce many sons, ensuring the continuation of the family line. Surrounding him is a flowing ribbon linking ancient coin, forms a symbol of wealth and prosperity. Together, these elements form a powerful blessing, children and fortune combined in one object. The jade itself is Celadon in tone, with a subtle brown skin along the surface. While this might seem like an imperfection, collectors often value it as it reflects the natural origin of the stone and can enhance its character. In terms of dating, the carving does not show the ultra-refined precision typical of the 18th century. Instead, it aligns more closely with either the 17th or 19th century, placing it firmly within the Qing dynasty tradition. The wooden stand is later likely added in the early 20th century to display the piece. What may seem modest at first is in fact a carefully crafted object filled with symbolism, history, and cultural meaning.
Do you have any idea of value?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
In a retail setting, it would probably carry a price tag of $7,000.
Very nice. Thank you.
I bought it at a flea market from a dealer who sells American Indian artifacts. And I bought it as a group with American Indian, and this came with the purchase. I believe the lot was $1,200 to $1,500.
It's the kind of discovery that hides in plain sight. Acquired as part of a mixed lot, this piece reveals far more than expected. At its center is a Chinese jade plaque, later mounted into a modern silver bangle. While the silver setting dates to the 20th or 21st century, the jade itself goes much further back, most likely to the Yuan dynasty 1271 to 1368. The carving depicts a goose in a lotus pond with lotus blossoms rising above. In Chinese symbolism, the lotus represents purity, while the goose suggests harmony and loyalty. The composition is quiet, yet deeply meaningful. Originally, plaques like this were not jewelry in the modern sense. They were sewn into garments often worn at the waist as decorative and symbolic elements. What makes this piece compelling is the contrast and ancient carving preserved within a modern form, bridging centuries of history in a single object.
At auction, I would estimate something like this at $4,000 to $6,000.
Good. I didn't know. I was hoping between 5 and 10, you know.
The estimate that I gave you is for the plaque itself, not how it's been set in the bracelet.
This is a snuff bottle that was passed down from my great aunt Celadon, and she and her husband traveled extensively, probably in the 1920s. They went overseas and they were in the Orient a fair amount.
At first glance, it's a small object, but the deeper you look, the more extraordinary it becomes. This is a Chinese snuff bottle with a story that spans centuries and even crosses cultures. The core of the piece is an 18th century white nephrite jade bottle dating to the Qianlong period of the Qing dynasty. During this time, snuff-taking became fashionable after smoking was restricted, and these bottles quickly became symbols of status and refinement. The jade itself is beautiful, with that soft, milky tone collector's prize, and those natural brown inclusions were actually admired, not avoided, as they proved the stone's authenticity. But what truly sets this bottle apart is what happened next. Sometime in the 19th century, this already fine Chinese object was transformed most likely in Japan. It was richly embellished with applied decoration in hardstones, lapis lazuli lacquer, and delicate seed pearls, creating a vivid scene with figures, cherry blossoms, and auspicious imagery like the Lingzhi fungus, a symbol of longevity and good fortune. So what you're looking at is not just a snuff bottle, but a two-chapter story, an elegant Qing dynasty object, later elevated by Japanese artistry into something even more elaborate and visually striking. It's this layering of history, craftsmanship, and cultural exchange that makes the piece so compelling.
Well, the snuff bottle market is a strong one presently. I think if this were to come up for auction in 2016, a conservative and reasonable auction estimate would be $4,000 to $6,000.
You're kidding. Oh my gosh. I had no idea.
So I bought a clip that my mother had for many years. It sat in my office for at least 23, 24 years. She was a collector of all different things. We grew up on the Upper West Side. She happened to take care of a lot of folks in our building. They gifted her things because she was a lovely woman. She gave it to me. Asian pieces are a highlight for me when we're watching the show. I think it's a paper clip to hold actual paper.
Sometimes the most ordinary-looking objects hold the most unexpected histories. What appears to be a simple clip is in reality centered around a Chinese jade dragon plaque of remarkable age and significance. The jade dates to the Ming dynasty 1368 to 1644 and is carved with a classic Eastern dragon. This dragon is long and sinuous with scales, whiskers, and horns moving fluidly through a field of foliage and possibly clouds. The carving captures both motion and symbolism, reflecting power and status. Originally, this plaque was not meant to function on its own. It would have been part of a larger set, sewn onto a belt, likely worn by someone of rank or privilege. Jade of this quality was considered a luxury material reserved for the elite. The silver clip on the back is a later addition, probably from the early 20th century, adapting the piece for modern use. However, the true importance lies in the jade itself, which carries the historical and artistic value.
The value here. This gray jade dragon plaque at auction would be estimated around $3,000 to $5,000.
Oh my God. Wow. You're kidding me. That's awesome. So exciting. I can't believe I'm here.